Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to walk the streets of a lost civilization, not as a tourist among ruins, but as a witness to its golden age? Tonight, we're going to do just that. We're leaving the present behind and journeying deep into the jungle, heart of Mesoamerica, to a time of pyramid cities and serpent kings. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me for this story. As we begin to settle in, I'm always curious to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's a wonderful thought, all of us gathered from across the globe to share in this journey. So, find a comfortable spot, allow your breathing to slow, and let the sounds of the world around you begin to fade away. Welcome to Sleeping Scribe, where calming history stories help you unwind and gently fall asleep. Tonight, we travel to the thriving Maya city-state of Tikal at the height of its power. Our story begins not in silence, but with the roar of a crowd and the pageantry of kings. The air is thick. It's heavy with the damp breath of the jungle and the heat of the midday sun. We find ourselves standing in the great plaza of Tikal, a vast, open space paved with white plaster that gleams under the tropical sky. All around us, the world rises in stone. Two colossal pyramids, their step sides climbing towards the heavens, face each other like silent, ancient gods. Their temple shrines at the top are painted a startling, deep red, the color of sacred blood. The space is alive. It is packed with tens of thousands of people, a sea of humanity that fills every corner of the plaza. The low murmur of their voices is a constant hum, a sound of anticipation. And beneath that hum, there is another sound, a deep and rhythmic pulse that you feel more than you hear. It's the steady, powerful beat of drums, thumping like the very heartbeat of the city, the sound echoing from the limestone walls of the temples. The smell in the air is a heady mixture. There is the earthy scent of the packed dirt at the plaza's edges, the sweat of the crowd, and something else. It's a sweet, pine-like fragrance that drifts in thick white clouds from burners. It is copal, the sacred tree resin, being burned in vast quantities as an offering to the gods. The smoke stings the eyes slightly, but it purifies the air, carrying the prayers of the people upwards. Today is a day of immense importance. It is a day that will be carved into stone, remembered for generations. The date, according to the intricate calendar of the Maya, is 9.15.10.0.0. In our time, we would call it the 22nd of August, in the year 741. On this day, a new ruler, a new king, will solidify his place between the mortal world and the divine. He is Yikin Chan Kaval, and this is the day of his glorious accession. The people of Tikal, a city that may be home to 90,000 souls, have gathered to witness this moment. They are farmers, artisans, merchants, and priests, all standing shoulder to shoulder. The layout of this very plaza is no accident. It is a mirror of the Maya cosmos, a sacred geography designed to place the city and its people at the center of the universe. The temples are sacred mountains, the plaza the sea of creation. Suddenly, the drumming changes its rhythm. It grows faster, more insistent. High-pitched notes from flutes made of bone join the deep thumping, and the buzzing rasp of turtle shells being scraped adds a strange, insect-like sound to the orchestra. All eyes turn towards the grand staircase of the North Acropolis, a sprawling complex of royal tombs and temples. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. He appears. The new king stands at the top of the stairs, a figure of almost unbelievable splendor. He is more than a man. He is a Kul, a Hau, a holy lord, a divine intermediary chosen by the gods to rule. His entire being is a living symbol of power and cosmic connection. Upon his head is an enormous headdress, a towering creation of wood, mosaic, and feathers that surely weighs more than 10 pounds. Thousands of iridescent green feathers, the tail feathers of the sacred Quetzal bird, shimmer and dance in the sunlight. They connect him to the sky god, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. His body is adorned with jade, a heavy pectoral ornament, carved in the shape of a god's face, rests on his chest. Wide bracelets of jade beads encircle his wrists, and a heavy belt, also decorated with jade masks, sits on his hips. To the Maya, jade is the most precious substance in the world, more valuable than gold. It is the color of new maize shoots, the symbol of life, breath, and fertility. By wearing it, the king declares himself the ultimate source of the city's prosperity. Slowly, he begins his descent. Each step is deliberate, theatrical. The crowd is silent now, held in a state of complete awe. The only sound is the royal music and the soft rustle of his feathered cloak. He is not just a ruler taking power. He is a conduit for the gods, his presence sanctifying the very stone he walks upon. He is the axis of the world, the pillar that holds up the sky. He reaches the base of the pyramid and walks towards a newly erected stone monument. It is a stelae, a tall, flat slab of limestone covered in intricate carvings. On it, artists have recorded his lineage, his titles, and the sacred date of this very ceremony. This stone will ensure that his name and his glory will be remembered for all time, a permanent record of his bond with the cosmos. Now, the most solemn part of the ceremony begins. A priest hands him a stingray spine, a sharp and sacred instrument. This is not an act of cruelty, but one of supreme duty. The king, the holy lord, must nourish the gods with his own life force. He pierces his tongue, letting his blood flow onto pieces of bark paper held in a ceramic bowl. This ritual of bloodletting is a profound sacrifice, a sacred debt paid to the deities who keep the sun in the sky and the corn growing in the fields. The smoke from the burning copal mingles with the smoke from the burning paper, carrying his offering directly to the heavens. As the king stands, robed in divine authority, his blood given freely to ensure the survival of his people, the crowd roars its approval. The drums reach a crescendo, the flutes wail. He is their king, their connection to the gods, the beating heart of Tikal. The ceremony is complete, his power cemented in blood and stone. He turns and slowly ascends back into the cool darkness of the temple, a living god retreating from the mortal world. As the king disappears into the temple's dark doorway, the sacred tension in the plaza begins to dissolve. The crowd, which had been a single, focused entity, breaks apart into thousands of individuals. The music fades, replaced by the rising hum of conversation. The formal, religious energy of the ceremony gives way to the more chaotic, human energy of daily life. Our focus pans away from the lofty temples. We pull back, descending the very steps the king just climbed, moving past the carved stelae and the smoking incense burners. We leave the sacred precinct behind and move towards the city's true lifeblood, the place where the wealth and diversity of the Maya world converge. We are heading for the marketplace, and already its sounds and smells are rising to meet us. The transition is immediate. The air, once thick with sacred copal, now carries 1,000 new scents. the sharp, tantalizing aroma of chili peppers being roasted, the sweet perfume of ripe tropical fruits like mangoes and papayas, and the comforting, savory smell of corn tortillas cooking on a hot clay griddle known as a comal. The sounds change to the rhythmic drumming is replaced by a cacophony of human noise, a vibrant symphony of commerce. We are in the great market of Tikal, a sprawling, open-air hub of activity nestled at the foot of the ceremonial center. It is a kaleidoscope of color and movement. Everywhere you look, there are people and goods. Brightly colored, woven textiles are piled high, their geometric patterns telling stories of family and village. Potters sit beside their wares, rows of orange and black ceramic vessels, some simple and utilitarian, others exquisitely painted with scenes from mythology. There is no clink of coins here. The Maya have no metal currency. Instead, commerce is a complex dance of barter and exchange, using standardized values for certain goods. The most common form of currency for everyday transactions is the humble cacao bean. We watch as a farmer holds up a plump rabbit. A buyer inspects it, and after a moment of haggling, a small cloth bag is produced. 10 dried cacao beans are carefully counted out, and the trade is made. A simple meal purchased with the building blocks of chocolate. But not everything is so simple. We move deeper into the market, towards the stalls of the wealthy merchants. These men, known as the Palim, are a distinct social class. They undertake long, dangerous journeys along trade routes that stretch for hundreds of miles, connecting Tikal to the wider world of Mesoamerica. Some have come from the highlands of what is now Guatemala, their porters carrying heavy loads of precious obsidian, the volcanic glass prized for making razor-sharp knives and spear points. Others have traveled from the distant coasts, bringing goods from the sea. We see piles of brilliant white salt formed into standardized cakes for easy transport, a vital commodity for preserving food in the jungle heat. There are also marine shells, shimmering with pearlescent colors, destined to be carved into jewelry for the noble class. And then there is the jade. A merchant carefully unwraps a piece of oiled cloth, revealing a collection of polished jadeite beads. Their green is deeper and more luminous than any leaf. This stone, traded from the distant Motagua River Valley, is the ultimate luxury. It is more precious than anything else in the market, a symbol of immense wealth and status. Nearby, another merchant displays a fan of impossibly vibrant feathers from macaws and parrots, their reds, blues, and yellows a stark contrast to the green jade. The market is not just a place of trade. It is the city's social heart. It is a place for news and for gossip. We hear the chatter of dozens of different Maya dialects, as people from surrounding villages and even rival city-states mingle and exchange information. Perhaps a merchant, acting as a spy for his king, listens carefully for whispers of political maneuvering in a distant capital. A mother and father might be quietly discussing a potential marriage arrangement with another family they have met among the stalls. We see a flint knapper, his hands scarred and calloused, chipping away at a piece of chert. With each practiced strike, he flakes off a piece, expertly shaping it into a perfect arrowhead. Not far from him, a woman sells live turkeys, their gobbles adding to the general noise. Another vendor offers large gourds filled with a golden liquid, honey, harvested from the native stingless bees of the region. The food in the ancient Maya Empire Golden Age was a feast for the senses. Piles of maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters of Mesoamerican agriculture, form the foundation of the local diet. There are also baskets overflowing with chilies of every size and color, strange-looking root vegetables, and juicy, unfamiliar fruits. You can imagine the rich, bitter taste of a traditional cacao drink, not sweet like our modern chocolate, but frothed into a foam and spiced with chili and vanilla, a beverage reserved for the elite. The market is a living, breathing organism. It is a testament to the complexity and sophistication of Maya society, a place where the farmer who grows the corn, the artisan who weaves the cloth, and the nobleman who wears the jade all come together. It is the engine that drives the city, a chaotic, vibrant, and utterly fascinating testament to a world built on trade, tradition, and the humble cacao bean. Leaving the noise and the energy of the market behind, we follow a simple path away from the city center, moving towards the quieter residential areas to see how the people who fuel this grand city actually live. The stone and plaster of the grand plazas give way to packed earth paths that wind between clusters of trees. The air grows quieter, the cacophony of the market replaced by more domestic sounds. We are entering the world of the common Maya family, the foundation upon which the entire civilization is built. The grand temples and palaces are a world away from here. We approach a household compound. It consists of a few simple structures arranged around a small, shared patio. The houses themselves are elegant in their simplicity. They are single-room buildings with walls made of wattle and daub, a lattice of interwoven sticks packed with mud and clay, and topped with a thick, high-peaked roof of thatched palm leaves. Each house rests on a low stone platform, a clever design to lift the floor above the mud and water of the rainy season. The smell of wood smoke is strong here. It drifts from the doorways and through the gaps in the walls. We peer inside one of the homes. The interior is dim, the only light filtering through the doorway and the thatch. A central hearth, a simple circle of 3 stones, holds a small, smoldering fire. This is the heart of the home, used for cooking, for warmth on cool nights, and for light. The smoke escapes slowly through the roof, leaving a dark patina on the inside of the thatch. A woman kneels on the floor, her movements practiced and efficient. She is making tortillas. In front of her is a stone basin where she has been grinding maize. But this is not simple corn. It has been soaked overnight in water with lime or ash, a process called nixtamalization. This ingenious chemical process unlocks the niacin and other vital nutrients in the corn, making it far more nutritious and preventing diseases like pellagra. Without this discovery, the dense populations of cities like Tikal could never have been sustained. We listen to the rhythmic slap-slap of her hands as she pats the dough into thin, perfect circles before placing them on a hot clay griddle over the fire. In another corner of the dim hut, an older woman, the grandmother of the family, sits on a reed mat. A wide leather strap passes around her lower back, connecting her to a simple loom that is tied to a wooden post. This is a backstrap loom, and with it, she weaves intricate patterns into cotton cloth. Her fingers move with a lifetime of experience, creating the beautiful textiles we saw for sale in the marketplace. Weaving is a highly skilled and deeply respected art, a gift from the moon goddess, and a crucial part of every woman's life. The family unit is the core of this society. Multiple generations often live together in these compounds, sharing the work and the resources. The man of the house and his older sons would have spent the day in their fields, which lie outside the city proper. They practice a form of agriculture known as milpa, or slash and burn. A section of the forest is cut down and burned, the ash providing fertilizer for the crops. They plant maize, beans, and squash together, a symbiotic trio that supports and nourishes both the soil and the people. This labor is not just for themselves. A portion of every harvest is paid as a tax to the Kul Ahau and the ruling elite who live in the stone palaces. They also pay with their time and their strength. When a new temple needs to be built or a causeway paved, these are the men who provide the corvée labor, quarrying the stone and hauling it for miles without the aid of wheeled vehicles or beasts of burden. It is their sweat that builds the monumental city. Children are raised to understand their future roles from a very young age. We see a small boy, no older than 5, carrying a miniature axe, a replica of his father's. A young girl sits beside her grandmother at the loom, her small hands learning to pass the shuttle back and forth. These are not just toys, but symbols of their destiny, preparing them for a life of farming and weaving, the 2 pillars of their existence. Just outside the house, a small kitchen garden is thriving. Here, the family grows herbs, spices, and fruit trees, supplementing their diet of maize. Life is tied to the cycles of the sun and the rain. It is a life of hard work, but it is also one of deep connection to the family, to the community, and to the ancestors. When a family member dies, they are often not taken to a distant cemetery. They are buried right here, under the floor of the house, their spirits remaining close to watch over the living. A small altar in the corner of the hut holds clay figurines of gods and ancestors, a constant, quiet reminder of the spiritual world that infuses every aspect of daily life. The warmth from the hearth is comforting. The rough texture of a hand-woven cotton blanket provides a sense of security. The cool, smooth surface of a clay water jug promises relief from the heat. This is a world grounded in the earth, a life of simple, profound routines. It is the silent, steady work of millions of people like these that allows the kings to wear their jade and the pyramids to touch the sky. As the afternoon sun begins to dip lower, casting long, dramatic shadows across the city, a different kind of energy begins to build back in the city's core. A distant roar, a wave of sound that travels over the thatched roofs and through the trees, signals that the day's main event is about to begin. The people in the compound begin to stir, their chores finishing for the day. We follow the crowds as they are drawn by that sound, back towards the Grand Plaza, towards the ball court. We find ourselves standing beside a unique and imposing structure. It is the ball court, a long, narrow alley flanked by 2 massive, sloping stone walls. The playing field is shaped like a capital letter I, with end zones at either side. The walls are covered in polished plaster that glints in the late afternoon sun. High up on the center of each wall is a single, vertically mounted stone ring, its opening impossibly small. This is not a field for a simple game. This is a sacred space, a theater for a ritual of cosmic importance. The stone seats that run along the top of the walls are packed with spectators. The energy is electric, a mixture of festive excitement and solemn reverence. Gambling is rampant. People wager their jade beads, their woven cloths, their prized tools, and sometimes even themselves on the outcome of the game. The air, still carrying the faint scent of copal, is now also thick with the smell of sweat and adrenaline. Then the players enter. They are not ordinary men. They are elite athletes, often from noble families, their bodies honed into peak physical condition. They are treated like celebrities, heroes of the city. They wear little clothing, but what they have is for protection. A thick, heavy yoke of leather and cotton, called a yoke, is cinched around their hips. They wear padding on their knees and elbows, and a kind of helmet to protect their heads. They need all of it. A priest enters the court and holds up the ball. It is made of solid, heavy rubber, harvested from the local rubber trees. It is larger than a human head and can weigh up to 9 pounds. It is not hollow or filled with air. It is a dense, unforgiving projectile that can break bones or even kill a man. The game, known in the classic Maya language as pits, is about to begin. The name some use, Pokatok, is a later invention, a name that mimics the sound of the ball hitting the walls and the players. The game starts, and it is a blur of breathtaking speed and brutal physicality. The objective is to keep the ball in motion, bouncing it off the sloping walls. But there is a crucial, almost impossible rule. The players cannot use their hands or their feet. They can only strike the ball with their hips, their thighs, and sometimes their upper arms. They launch their bodies through the air, twisting and diving across the stone floor, slamming their padded hips into the heavy rubber ball to send it flying. The sharp, percussive thwack of the ball hitting a player's leather hip guard echoes through the court. It is a violent, powerful sound. The crowd roars with every daring move. The ball moves so fast it is difficult to track. It ricochets off the walls at dizzying angles. The players must be masters of geometry and physics, anticipating the ball's trajectory, positioning themselves for a perfect strike. The ultimate goal, of course, is to send the ball through one of the stone hoops. But this is an incredibly rare feat, so difficult that a single goal might end the game immediately, an undisputed and glorious victory. More often, games are won and lost on points, which are scored through a complex system of faults and penalties. But this is so much more than a sport. The ball court itself is seen as a sacred portal, a connection between the world of the living and Xibalba, the Maya underworld. The game is a ritual reenactment of a central story from their sacred book, the Popol Vuh. In that story, the hero twins descend into the underworld to play the game against the Lords of Death, ultimately defeating them and allowing for the creation of humanity. So, as these players dive and strike, they are not just athletes. They are reenacting the cosmic struggle between life and death, order and chaos. The ball represents the sun, the moon, and the stars, and their struggle to keep it in motion is the struggle to keep the cosmos in order. The shared tension of the crowd is palpable. There is a collective intake of breath as the ball flies towards the hoop, followed by a groan of disappointment as it misses. The stakes are impossibly high. While it did not happen after every game, human sacrifice was deeply connected to this ritual. Panels carved on ball courts in other cities depict the decapitation of a player. But who was sacrificed? It was not always, as we might assume, the captain of the losing team. Sometimes it was a captive from a recent war, forced to play and then offered to the gods. And sometimes, in the ultimate act of piety, it may have been the captain of the winning team, whose glorious victory made him the most worthy and perfect offering. The game rages on, a thrilling spectacle of skill, strength, and sacred duty. The sun dips lower, the stone walls of the court glowing orange in the fading light. Finally, a victor is decided. The roar of the crowd is deafening, a wave of sound that washes over the entire city. The players, bruised, exhausted, and covered in sweat, leave the court as heroes, having played their part in the great cosmic drama. As the game concludes and the sun finally sets, casting long shadows from the pyramids, the frenetic energy of the day begins to give way to the quiet mystery of the night. The city's physical pulse slows, and the sounds of the crowd are replaced by the chirping of insects in the surrounding jungle. Our attention turns inward, away from the spectacle of public life, and towards the world of ideas and knowledge that truly powered this incredible civilization. We've just spent a day in a thriving Maya city, from the king's grand ceremony to the intensity of the ball game. It's an incredible thought, isn't it? As we pause here for a moment, I wonder which part of that daily life most captures your imagination. Let me know in the comments if you feel like sharing. Now, let's venture deeper, beyond the city walls and into the mind of the Maya. The sun has set on Tikal. The echoes of the ball game have faded, and a profound quiet has settled over the stone city, a silence broken only by the chirping of insects and the distant calls of nocturnal animals from the deep jungle. Our journey now moves from the world of the sun to the world of the mind. We leave the grand public spaces and enter a place of quiet contemplation, a place where knowledge itself is made sacred. We find ourselves in a room within one of the palaces, away from the royal court. The space is lit by the soft, flickering orange glow of a small oil lamp. The air here is different, cooler than the humid plaza. It carries the earthy, slightly sweet scent of paper and the mineral tang of fresh ink. This is the workshop of an Akuhan, a master scribe, a keeper of the sacred books. He sits on a woven reed mat, his back straight, his focus absolute. He is a man of high status, likely a son of the ruling family, for in the Maya world, literacy is not a common skill. It is a form of immense power, a guarded secret of the elite. To be able to read and write the complex glyphs is to be able to interpret the will of the gods, record the deeds of kings, and map the movements of the stars. It is to hold history and destiny in your hands. In front of him lies a long strip of pale paper, folded like an accordion. This is a codex, a Maya book. It is a thing of beauty and incredible craftsmanship. The paper itself is a minor miracle, made from the inner bark of the wild fig tree. The bark has been soaked, beaten until it is soft and fibrous, and then pressed into a thin, durable sheet. Afterwards, it was coated with a fine, smooth layer of plaster, creating a perfect surface for writing. The scribe works with intense concentration. In one hand, he holds a palette made from a seashell, its small indentations holding pools of black and red ink. We listen to the gentle, rhythmic scratch of the brush as it moves across the sized paper. It is a sound of pure creation, the sound of an idea being given a permanent form. He is painting the language of his people. The Maya script is one of the most sophisticated writing systems ever developed in the ancient world. It is what we call a logosyllabic system. A glyph that looks like a jaguar's head, for instance, simply means jaguar. But mixed in with these are hundreds of other glyphs that represent sounds. They are syllabograms, symbols for the syllables of the spoken language. A scribe could write the word for jaguar balam by either using the jaguar head logogram or by combining the 3-syllable glyphs for ba, la, and ma. This flexibility gave the script its incredible nuance and versatility, allowing scribes to write anything they could say. We watch as he finishes a block of text, painting the main glyphs in a deep, carbon-based black. He then dips a different brush into the red ink made from hematite or cinnabar, and carefully paints a date. The red ink is reserved for titles, key dates, and important names, making them stand out on the page. It is typically read in paired columns, from left to right and top to bottom. You would read the first two glyphs in the top left, then the first two in the top right, before moving down to the next row. These books contain the collected wisdom of the Maya world. Within their folded pages are precise astronomical tables, prophecies for the future, the genealogies of royal dynasties, and the protocols for complex religious rituals. They are manuals for kings and priests, roadmaps of time and the cosmos. The great stone stelae we saw in the plaza, covered in carvings, are essentially public books, their texts proclaiming the power and divine right of the ruler for all the literate elite to see. And yet, there is a deep sadness in this room. We know that of the thousands upon thousands of these beautiful codices that must have existed, filled with history, poetry, and science, only 4 are known to have survived to the present day: the Dresden, Madrid, Paris, and Grolier codices. They are the last tattered remnants of a vast library of knowledge, most of it deliberately destroyed in the centuries that followed. The great creator god Itzamna, who was believed to have invented writing and science. The scribe's work is not merely a job, it is a sacred duty. Each glyph he paints is a whisper from the past, a message to the future. Each page he fills is another small victory against the chaos of forgetting. The glyphs are not just pictures or sounds. They are also vessels for numbers and dates, for the precise calculations that underpin their entire worldview. To truly understand the knowledge being recorded on this whispering bark paper, we must first understand the revolutionary mathematical system that gave it a voice. We move from the scribe's workshop to a quieter, more abstract space, the world of pure thought. Here, we can begin to understand the elegant and powerful mathematical system the Maya created. It was a tool so advanced that it allowed them to map the cosmos and measure time with an accuracy that would not be surpassed for centuries. For the number 1, he draws a single dot. For 2, 2 dots. For 4, 4 dots. But when he gets to 5, he wipes the dots away and draws a single horizontal bar. A bar is 5. The number 6, then, is a bar with a dot above it. 7 is a bar with 2 dots. 13 is 2 bars with 3 dots above them. It is a simple, intuitive system. The first was its base. We, in most of the world today, use a based-in system, likely because we have 10 fingers. The Maya, however, used a vigesimal or base 20 system. It is thought that this developed from a culture of counting on both fingers and toes. This base 20 system was instrumental in their ability to handle the very large numbers needed for astronomy and their calendar. Their numbers were written vertically, in a positional system much like our own. In our system, the numbers in the right-hand column are ones. The next column to the left is tens, then hundreds, and so on. The Maya did the same, but vertically. The lowest position, at the bottom, was 4 numbers from 0 to 19. The position directly above that was the 20s place. The position above that was not hundreds, but 400s, which is 20 times 20. It was a system built for exponential growth. But it is the second revolutionary feature that truly marks the genius of Maya mathematics. To have a positional number system, you absolutely must have a way to signify an empty place. You need a zero. And the Maya, independently and without any contact with the old world, invented the concept of zero by at least 36 BC. This was centuries before the idea was fully utilized in Europe or Asia. It was a staggering intellectual leap. Their symbol for zero was a beautiful, stylized shell. To write the number 20, for example, a scribe would draw a shell in the bottom position, representing 0 ones, and a single dot in the position above it. This concept of zero as a placeholder was absolutely crucial. It allowed them to perform complex calculations and, most importantly, to record the vast spans of time in their calendar with perfect precision. We can imagine a priest making a calculation, not with a pen, but with pebbles or cacao beans on a mat, moving them from one position to another to perform addition or subtraction. Combining 2 bars gives you 2 dots in the next highest position. It is an elegant, physical way of thinking about numbers. For calendrical calculations, they made a clever modification to their system. While the base position was ones and the second was 20s, the third position was not 400, it was 360, or 18 times 20. This was a deliberate choice to more closely approximate the length of the solar year, making their calendar math even more seamless. 4 grand public declarations, each number from 0 to 19, could be represented not by dots and bars, but by a unique head-variant glyph. These were the faces of different deities. The number 4, for example, was the head of the sun god. The number 0 was a head with a hand covering its jaw. Numbers were not just abstract concepts. They were living, divine forces. The symbol of the shell for 0, which in Mayan was called mi, is thought to represent a closed hand, a seed pod, or a snail shell, signifying ideas of completion, emptiness, or nothingness. It was more than a placeholder. It was a profound philosophical concept. The invention of 0 was the key that unlocked the cosmos for the Maya. It was the genius of a simple shell, a tool that allowed them to count not just what was there, but to also give a name and a shape to what was not. This powerful mathematical engine was not just an abstract tool for scholars to play with. It was the driving force behind their greatest intellectual achievement, the very heart of their worldview. A system of interlocking calendars that measured time with breathtaking accuracy and spiritual depth. Time, for the Maya, was not a simple, straight line. It was a living, breathing entity, a complex and beautiful machine composed of multiple, interlocking gears. To understand their world, we must understand their calendars, the sacred engines that governed every aspect of their existence, from the planting of corn to the crowning of kings. There were 2 main calendars that ran simultaneously, like 2 great gears, turning together. After 13 days, the number cycle would restart at 1, but the day name cycle would continue. Each of the 260 days in the token had a unique spiritual significance, a distinct personality. It was a system of divination, much like a zodiac, a priest, a daykeeper. A person's character and destiny were believed to be shaped by the Tzolk'in date on which they were born. The second, larger gear was the Hab. This was their 365-day solar calendar, and it was used for more practical matters, like agriculture. The Hab was composed of 18 months of 20 days each. The portals between the mortal world and the spirit world were believed to be open and malevolent forces were thought to roam the earth. During these 5 days, people would stay inside their homes, fasting and making offerings, waiting anxiously for the new year to begin. It was a time of deep spiritual introspection and fear. Now, imagine these two calendars, the 260-day dazzling and the 365-day Hab, as two gears of different sizes, their teeth interlocking. A specific date was made by combining the position of both gears. You might have a day called for Ahau 8 Kumku, for instance. Because the gears were different sizes, this exact combination of a Tzolk'in date and a Hab date would not repeat until both calendars had cycled back to their starting points together. This took 18,980 days, or 52 years. This 52-year cycle is called the calendar round, and it was a major span of time in the lives of the Maya. But for tracking history over vast periods, they used an even grander system, the long count. This was a linear calendar, one that did not cycle, but simply counted the total number of days that had passed since a mythical creation date. For the Maya, the current world began on a date equivalent to August 11th, 3114 BC in our own calendar. Every stela, every royal monument was stamped with its long count date, fixing it in the grand tapestry of deep time. A long count date was written as a series of 5 numbers, each representing a period of time. There was the kin, or 1 day. A winal was 20 days. A ton was 360 days. A katan was 7,200 days. And a baktan was a massive cycle of 144,000 days. By using this system, they could record historical events with perfect, unambiguous precision across millennia. It was the completion of the 13th baktan in this calendar that led to the famous 2012 phenomenon. But for the Maya, this was never an apocalyptic prophecy. It was simply the completion of a major cycle, a profoundly important anniversary of creation, a time for celebration, not fear. Their conception of time was cyclical. The past was not gone, but was a blueprint for the future. Events were believed to echo across these vast cycles. This obsessive and brilliant measurement of time was a testament to their incredible intellect. Their calculation of the length of the solar year was 365.242 days. The true figure is 365.24219. Their measurement was more accurate than the Julian calendar being used in Europe at the very same time. And this was all achieved without complex instruments, through pure, patient observation. This obsession with time, however, was not for its own sake. It was intrinsically linked to their ability to read the sky, to track the movements of the gods across the heavens from their remarkable observatories. We find ourselves now standing atop a tall, round tower, a building known as an observatory. The air is cool and still. Below us, the jungle is a dark, breathing sea, alive with the sounds of the night. But up here, there is a profound silence. This is where the Maya priests became astronomers. They were meticulous observers of the night sky, tracking the movements of the sun, the moon, and the 5 visible planets with nothing more than their naked eyes and simple sighting tools like crossed sticks. Their entire cities were often built in harmony with the cosmos. Temples and plazas were deliberately aligned to mark key astronomical events. A doorway might perfectly frame the rising sun on the summer solstice, or the corner of a pyramid might align with the northernmost setting point of the planet Venus. Their architecture was a form of celestial clock, a way of anchoring their earthly world to the rhythms of the heavens. They were particularly obsessed with the planet Venus. They did not see it as we do, as a gentle morning star or evening star. To them, Venus was a powerful, unpredictable, and often dangerous deity, intimately linked with warfare and ritual. Their astronomers calculated the synodic period of Venus, the time it takes for the planet to reappear in the same spot in the sky, at exactly 584 days. The true average is 583.92 days. It was a calculation of stunning accuracy. Auspicious moments in the cycle of Venus were chosen for the most important events in the life of the state. A king would often launch a war against a rival city on the day Venus first appeared in the morning sky as a herald of the dawn. Royal coronations were timed to coincide with its movements. To be able to predict the path of this war star was to wield a powerful weapon, and their predictive power was not limited to Venus. The Dresden Codex, one of the 4 surviving Maya books, is in large part an astronomical almanac. Within its pages are incredibly complex tables that could be used to predict, with startling accuracy, the dates of solar and lunar eclipses. Imagine the power this gave a ruler. He could stand before his people and seemingly command the sun to darken or the moon to turn red, proving his divine connection and his favor with the gods. They had their own constellations, their own zodiac, populated with the animals of their world. They saw a turtle, a peccary, and a scorpion in the patterns of the stars. And the brilliant Milky Way, which we see arching overhead, was for them the Wakachan, the great world tree. Its trunk was the axis of the cosmos, its branches reaching into the heavens, its roots deep in the underworld of Xibalba. It was the cosmic pathway that connected all realms of existence. Structures like this one, the Caracol at Chichen Itza, were specifically designed for astronomical observation. Its strange, round shape and its system of windows and alignments allowed priests to precisely track the movements of Venus and other celestial bodies. Standing here in the cool night air, feeling the smooth stone of a viewing window, you can feel a sense of profound wonder. You can feel the sense of smallness beneath the vast, silent turning of the cosmos. This deep, sacred knowledge of mathematics, time, and the stars formed the bedrock of their civilization. It was the source of their power, their art, and their spiritual beliefs. But even the most profound understanding of the cosmos could not shield them from the forces, both natural and man-made, that would begin to test their world to its very limits. The Maya mind was a universe unto itself, capable of such incredible feats of science and art. It's humbling to consider as we prepare to move into the next chapter of their story. I'm curious, does their mathematical or astronomical genius impress you more? There's no right answer, of course, just something to ponder as you relax ever deeper. We have walked the vibrant streets of Tikal in its golden age. We have stood in awe of its kings, explored the genius of its scribes, and mapped the heavens with its astronomers. But now, our journey takes us forward in time, to the end of the classic period. Around the year 800 AD, the world we have come to know is beginning to change. The steady, confident heartbeat of the stone cities is starting to falter. We are entering the great mystery of the Maya, the period known as the classic Maya collapse. This was not a sudden event, not a single cataclysmic moment. It was a slow, creeping silence that fell over the great cities of the southern lowlands over the course of more than a century. It was a complex and tragic puzzle, and to understand it, we must become historical detectives, piecing together the clues left behind in the cracked earth and the silent stones. Our first piece of evidence lies not in a temple, but deep in the mud at the bottom of a lake. Imagine a parched cornfield under a relentless, brassy sun. The once green leaves are yellow and brittle, crumbling to dust at the slightest touch. The rich soil is now a network of deep, thirsty cracks. In the center of the city, the grand reservoir, once a shimmering heart of life-giving water, is now just a vast, concave expanse of dried mud. This is the world the Maya of the southern lowlands began to inhabit. This is the world of the Great Drought. For a long time, the reasons for the abandonment of cities like Tikal were a profound mystery. But in recent decades, scientists have learned to read the story of the past in the most unlikely of places. By drilling deep into the sediment at the bottom of Lake Chichancanab in the Yucatan, they have recovered a detailed history of the region's climate. The layers of mud act like pages in a book, and the chemical composition of those layers tells a clear story. And the story they tell is of a dramatic and devastating decrease in rainfall right between the years 800 and 925 AD. The evidence is not found only in lake beds in the deep, silent caves of Belize. Another natural archive was keeping a record. Water, seeping through the rock for millennia, has formed massive stalagmites, growing upwards from the cave floor drip by drip. By analyzing the isotopes in the layers of these stone formations, scientists can create a year-by-year record of how much rain fell. That record confirms, with chilling precision, the findings from the lake. It shows not just one drought, but a series of them, multiple, severe, prolonged dry spells, some lasting for decades at a time. The brilliant civilization of the classic Maya was built on a foundation of water. Their entire agricultural system, their very survival, was dependent on the predictable cycle of seasonal rains. They were masters of water management, building intricate systems of canals, reservoirs, and cisterns to capture and store every precious drop. But this system, as ingenious as it was designed for seasonal dry spells, not for multi-generational droughts. As the rains failed, year after year, the consequences would have been catastrophic. The milpa fields would have withered, leading to widespread crop failures. This, in turn, would lead to famine. Archaeologists can see the evidence written on the bones of the people who lived through this time. Skeletons from this period show clear signs of severe malnutrition and an increase in diseases. The once mighty cities were beginning to starve. But the drought was not just a physical crisis, it was a spiritual and political one. The entire authority of the Kul, Ahau, the Holy Lord, was built on his perceived ability to communicate with the gods and ensure the world's fertility. His most sacred duty, the reason for his elaborate rituals and blood sacrifices, was to keep the rains coming and the corn growing. As the fields turned to dust, the people would have looked to the temples, and they would have seen that the king's rituals were failing. The gods, it seemed, were no longer listening. The divine pact was broken. To make matters worse, the Maya may have inadvertently contributed to their own plight. For centuries, they had been clearing vast tracts of forest to make way for their fields, and they had burned enormous quantities of green wood to heat limestone into the fine white plaster that covered their magnificent temples. This widespread deforestation could have exacerbated the drought's local effects, reducing humidity and rainfall in a disastrous feedback loop. This immense environmental stress was the catalyst. It was the great amplifier, the force that took all the other existing problems in Maya society, from political rivalries to social inequality, and pushed them past the breaking point. The cracked earth tells a story of a world out of balance, a story of a civilization whose foundations were slowly, inexorably drying up. As the rains failed and the fields withered, a deep crisis of faith began to ripple through the southern lowlands. The gods seemed deaf, and the kings, who claimed to speak for them, were powerless. In a world of dwindling resources, desperation grows, and old rivalries, once kept in check by tradition and ritual, can easily ignite into open conflict. This crisis of faith and resources fueled another simmering problem, fanning it into a destructive wildfire, a new and more terrible form of warfare. Warfare had always been a part of Maya life, but for much of the classic period, it was a highly ritualized and limited affair. The primary goal was often not to conquer territory or destroy an enemy's city, but to capture a high-status rival, a lord or a king, for a glorious public ritual of sacrifice. But in the terminal classic period, the nature of war began to change. It became something far more brutal, far more total. We can see this change recorded in their own words. The stone monuments and hieroglyphic stairways carved during this era show a marked increase in glyphs and images related to war. One of the most potent of these is the Star War glyph. It often features an icon for a star pouring liquid onto the earth, and it signals a particularly intense and decisive type of war, one possibly timed to the movements of the planet Venus, their war star. The city-state of Dos Pilas provides a grim example of this new era of conflict. The detailed inscriptions on its hieroglyphic stairway read like a brutal military history, a story of a city that engaged in a relentless campaign of conquest against its neighbors, including its former overlord, the great city of Tikal. The goal was no longer just capture, but domination. Archaeology tells the same story. For centuries, the great cities of the heartland, like Tikal and its mighty rival Kalakmal, had no need for defensive walls. They were centers of sacred power, their might projected outwards. But in this later period, we see the hasty construction of massive fortifications. Ditches were dug, and high wooden palisades were erected around the central precincts of the cities. The world was no longer safe. The threat of attack was constant. This pervasive sense of anxiety is palpable at sites like Aguateca, a city perched on a high escarpment. The archaeological evidence there suggests the city was attacked and abandoned so suddenly that life simply stopped in its tracks. Temples were left half-finished, and valuable goods were left behind in elite homes. The inhabitants fled with only what they could carry, a population scattered by a sudden, catastrophic act of war. The old system of alliances and trade routes began to break down. The Maya world became balkanized, a fractured landscape of competing city-states locked in a desperate struggle for survival. The long-distance trade that once brought essential goods like salt, obsidian, and jade into the cities was severely disrupted, further crippling their economies. This endemic warfare created a vicious cycle. As the drought made good farmland and water more scarce, competition for these resources intensified, leading to more conflict. The armies themselves grew larger and more demanding, no longer composed solely of nobles fighting for glory. They now included legions of commoner soldiers, men pulled from the fields. This drained the cities of the very manpower they needed to produce food in a time of famine. And when one city finally conquered another, the victors would often engage in a ritual of deliberate destruction. They would deface the monuments of the defeated king, hacking away at the stone, chipping out his face and his name from the public record, a violent attempt to erase his entire lineage from history. Imagine the atmosphere in a city during this time: the constant fear of an attack, the unsettling sound of distant war drums, the sight of smoke rising on the horizon from a neighboring city in flames. The acrid smell of burning thatch and wood would have been the smell of the end of an era. The Star Shell Wars were not the sole cause of the collapse, but they were a devastating symptom of a system in crisis, a series of self-inflicted wounds that bled the Maya world of its strength, its resources, and its people, with the environment failing them and their leaders, leading them into ever more destructive wars. The very fabric of Maya society began to fray. The intricate system of belief and obligation, the social contract that had held their world together for centuries, started to unravel. The weight of the pyramids, both literal and metaphorical, was becoming too much to bear. Classic Maya society was built like one of its own temples. It was an extreme pyramid structure with a tiny, powerful elite class of holy lords, priests, and nobles at the very top. This elite was supported by the immense base of the pyramid, the vast population of commoner farmers, the people who built the temples, grew the food, and fought the wars. The entire system depended on a delicate balance, a social contract between the rulers and the ruled. The rulers, the Kul Ahau, offered divine intercession. They promised to keep the cosmos in order, the rains falling and the crops growing. In exchange for this spiritual guarantee of prosperity and stability, the common people paid tribute. They gave a portion of their harvest to feed the elites, and they gave their labor to build the magnificent cities and fight the ritual wars. For centuries, this system worked, but now the contract was broken. The kings could no longer hold up their end of the bargain. The rains were not falling, and the fields were not fertile. And yet, in the face of this crisis, the demands of the elite likely did not lessen. In fact, they probably grew. A king whose rituals were failing might have believed the solution was even grander ceremonies, even more elaborate temples, and even greater sacrifices to appease the angry gods. This would have placed an unsustainable burden on a populace that was already suffering from famine and war. We can see the toll this took by once again looking at the skeletons of the common people. The bones from the late classic period show increasing rates of disease and chronic malnutrition. Life was becoming harder, more brutal. The promise of the good life under a divine king had evaporated, replaced by the grim reality of hunger, sickness, and fear. And so, the common people made a choice. The collapse, it turns out, was not a story of a mysterious plague or a mass death event. It was primarily a demographic shift. The people simply left. They voted with their feet. They abandoned the great stone cities, the centers of divine kingship, and dispersed into the countryside, forming smaller, more sustainable villages where they could focus on feeding their families, free from the crushing weight of tribute. It was a quiet, grassroots revolution, a rejection of a political and religious system that had failed them. We can see the process frozen in time. A half-finished temple, its construction tools lying on the ground right where they were dropped, weeds, then small saplings, beginning to grow in the cracks of a great plaza that once teemed with thousands of people. The abandonment was a slow process, happening over several generations. A family would leave, then another. A neighborhood would empty out, then an entire section of the city. The great knowledge of writing, calendrics, and astronomy, which had been so carefully guarded by the elite class, began to fade in the southern lowlands. As the elites lost their power base, their specialized knowledge was lost with them. The system had become too top-heavy, too rigid to adapt to the unprecedented scale of the crisis it faced. Imagine the profound silence of a place that was once so full of life. The echo of your own footsteps in a royal court where a king once held sway. The feel of moss growing over a carved stone glyph, its intricate meaning slowly being obscured by time. This was not a disappearance. It was a choice. It was the quiet, deliberate decision of a people to walk away from a world that was no longer working in search of a new way to live. The great stone hearts of the southern cities, Tikal, Kalakmul, Kopan, ceased to beat. The plazas fell silent. The kings, priests, and scribes were gone, their world dissolving back into the landscape from which it came. But the Maya people did not vanish. As we conclude our main story, we look upon the silent ruins, now draped in the green shroud of the jungle, and reflect on what was lost and what endured. We stand now in the same great plaza of Tikal where our journey began, but it is not the same place. The white plaster floors are shattered, pierced by the roots of immense ceiba trees that now rise higher than the temples themselves. Their massive, snake-like roots pry apart the stone staircases, a slow, relentless assertion of nature's power. The deep red paint on the temple walls has long since faded, and the stone itself is covered in a soft, green blanket of moss. The silence here is the most profound feature. It is a silence that is deeper than mere quiet. It is the silence of absence. A city that once housed 90,000 souls, a place that once echoed with the thumping of drums, the shouts of the marketplace, and the roar of the ball game crowd, is now utterly still. The only sound is the wind whispering through the canopy, and the distant, haunting call of a howler monkey, a lonely voice echoing through the empty stone canyons. The jungle reclaims its own with astonishing speed. Within a few generations of the last inhabitant's departure, a stone palace can be completely enveloped by vines and trees, its courtyards turned into a forest floor. The population of these southern lowlands is estimated to have dropped by as much as 90%. The people moved away north to the Yucatan Peninsula or into smaller, less centralized communities. For this reason, many scholars today debate the very word collapse. They prefer the term transformation. What ended was a specific political system, the model of divine kingship that had dominated this region for centuries. But the Maya people, their languages, and many of their cultural traditions endured. They adapted and continued their story in other places, in other ways. For centuries, these abandoned cities were places of legend. Later, Maya peoples who remained in the area would make pilgrimages to their crumbling temples, treating them as sacred, ancestral sites. To the outside world, they were completely lost. When the first Western explorers, men like John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood, stumbled upon these ruins in the 19th century, they were so magnificent, so strange, that they could scarcely believe they were the work of the ancestors of the local people. The full story of why the cities were abandoned lay hidden for centuries more, a mystery locked away in the undeciphered glyphs and the unread climate records. Only now, Through the patient work of archaeologists, epigraphers, and scientists, can we begin to piece together the narrative. Modern technologies like LiDAR, which can digitally strip away the jungle canopy, are revealing the true mind-boggling extent of these abandoned settlements, showing us a landscape that was far more densely populated than we ever imagined. To stand in these ruins today is to feel a bittersweet sense of wonder. There is the awe at the artistry and the engineering skill, the marvel at what this civilization achieved. But it is inseparable from a deep, poignant sense of loss for the world that created it. It is a powerful reminder that even the most brilliant and complex societies are fragile, dependent on the delicate balance between their people, their leaders, and the environment that sustains them. And so, the plazas fell silent. The kings and scribes were gone, and the jungle gently reclaimed its own. The story of the classic Maya collapse isn't one of a mysterious vanishing act, but a complex, human story of a brilliant civilization pushed to its limits by forces of nature and by its own hand. It's a powerful and humbling tale. Thank you for journeying with me through this incredible world. I hope you're feeling calm and comfortable. Our main story is complete, but the history of the Maya people is far from over. If you feel like drifting off now, please do. Sweet dreams. But if you'd like to stay a while longer, we'll explore what came next. The main thread of our story, the tale of the rise and fall of the great classic cities, has now come to a close here, in the quiet embrace of the jungle. But the river of time flows on. The story of the Maya people did not end in the silence of the southern plazas. To believe so is to miss the greatest truth of their history, their profound and enduring resilience. So, if you are still with me, let us continue our journey, not into an ending, but into a new beginning. Let the world around you continue to fade. Allow your thoughts to drift, a place of new ideas and new cities, a testament to the simple fact that a culture is more than its monuments. A culture is a people. As the great cities of the southern jungle lowlands grew quiet, a new chapter of Maya history was already being written hundreds of miles to the north. The center of gravity of the Maya world was shifting, moving to the flatter, drier, and very different landscape of the Yucatan Peninsula. This was not an ending, it was a renaissance. The land here is geologically unique. The deep, rich soil of the south gives way to a vast, flat shelf of porous limestone. There are very few rivers or lakes on the surface. Instead, the life of this land is drawn from below. For centuries, rainwater has seeped through the limestone, carving out vast underground river systems. Sometimes, the roof of one of these subterranean caves will collapse, opening a deep, natural well to the sky. These are the cenotes, the sacred sinkholes, and they were the source of all fresh water for the northern Maya. Around these precious sources of water, new cities rose, with new styles of art and new ways of thinking. We find ourselves now in the city of Uzamal, its buildings gleaming white under a clear blue sky. The architecture here is breathtakingly elegant. It is known as the Puuc style, and it is famous for its intricate, mosaic-like facades. The lower parts of the buildings are often left plain, but the upper sections are covered in a breathtaking profusion of carved stone. Imagine running your hand over one of these walls. You would feel a complex, lace-like pattern of geometric shapes, repeating masks of the hook-nosed rain god, chalk, and intricate lattice of stone. The play of the bright sun and the deep shadows on these facades creates a sense of constant, shimmering movement. It is an architecture of pure beauty, a celebration of order and form. The air here is warm, and a soft breeze whispers across the flat plains, carrying the mineral scent of limestone and fresh water. We journey onward to an even more famous city, the great Chichen Itza. Here, a new influence is felt, a fusion of cultures that speaks to the changing times. The city shows a strong connection to the peoples of central Mexico, likely the Toltecs. We see this in the art and architecture. There are carvings of feathered serpents, depictions of warriors with atlatls or spear throwers, and great colonnaded halls that feel different from the temples of the south. At the heart of the city stands the massive pyramid known as the Castillo, the Temple of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. This pyramid is more than just a temple. It is a massive solar calendar carved in stone. It has 4 stairways, each with 91 steps. When you add the single step of the platform at the top, the total is 365, the number of days in the solar year. And twice a year, on the spring and autumn equinoxes, the temple reveals its greatest secret. As the sun begins to set, the corner of the pyramid's stepped terraces casts a long, undulating shadow upon the northern staircase. The shadow creeps slowly downwards, connecting the temple at the top with a great serpent's head carved in stone at the bottom. For a few fleeting moments, it appears as if a colossal diamond-backed serpent of pure shadow is descending from the heavens to the earth. It is a moment of pure architectural and astronomical magic, a silent, theatrical display of the deep connection between the earth and the sky. The political world had changed as well. The absolute power of the Kul Ahau, the divine king of the south, gave way to a more collaborative form of government. The northern cities were often ruled by councils of nobles, and the merchant class grew in wealth and influence. They developed extensive maritime trade routes that circuited the entire peninsula. Great dugout canoes, some large enough to hold dozens of people, would paddle along the coasts, trading salt, honey, cotton, and other goods. After the influence of Chichen Itza waned, the city of Mayopan rose to become the dominant capital of the Yucatan, ruling over a large confederation of other city-states. It was a walled city, a reflection of a more turbulent and militaristic age, but it maintained Maya culture for over 2 centuries. And throughout this time, the sacred cenotes remained powerful centers of pilgrimage. Imagine standing at the edge of the Great Cenote at Chichen Itza. The mouth is a wide, dark circle in the earth, leading down to mysterious, turquoise green water. The air rising from it is cool and humid, a stark contrast to the heat of the day. For centuries, people came from all over the Maya world to this sacred place to make offerings to the rain god Chalk. Archaeologists, dredging the bottom of this cenote, jade plaques, carved wooden objects, and even the remains of human sacrifices. It was a place of profound reverence, a direct portal to the underworld. This entire era, known as the post-classic period, was a time of incredible transformation and adaptation. For centuries after the southern cities fell silent, the Maya of the north continued to thrive, building new cities, creating new styles of art, and forging new connections with the wider world. Their world was vibrant, resilient, and very much alive. But this world would soon face a challenge unlike any it had ever known. A challenge that arrived on strange, floating houses from across the eastern sea. A profound and world-altering change was coming. The vibrant post-classic world of the northern Maya was about to encounter a force that would test its resilience to the very core. The year is 1517. From their coastal settlements, the Maya watch as strange vessels, larger than any canoe they have ever seen, appear on the horizon, their great white sails like the wings of impossible birds. This was the beginning of the Spanish contact, an encounter that would lead to a long twilight struggle for the soul of the Maya world. The story of the Spanish conquest of the Maya is not like that of the Aztec or the Inca. There was no single great empire to defeat, no central capital to capture. The Maya of the Yucatan were organized into a patchwork of independent and often rival city-states. This decentralized political nature made them incredibly difficult to subdue. When the Spanish conquered one kingdom, another would rise up to fight them. The conquest of the Maya was not a swift campaign, but a long, brutal, and protracted affair that would last for more than 170 years. Our focus here is not on the violence of battles, but on the quiet yet momentous cultural encounter that unfolded. The Spanish brought with them not just steel swords and horses, but a new god. In a plaza that once held a carved stone stele depicting a Maya king, a simple wooden cross was now erected. The deep, rhythmic sound of ceremonial drums began to be replaced by the quiet, steady tolling of a mission bell. The scent of copal incense, once used to send prayers to the old gods, now mingled with the new scent of beeswax candles burning in a newly built church. But the most devastating weapon the Europeans brought was one they could not see. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, common in Europe, were completely unknown in the Americas. The Maya people had no immunity to these new sicknesses, and they were ravaged by devastating plagues that swept through their communities, wiping out entire villages and killing a vast percentage of the population before many had ever even seen a Spaniard. Among the newcomers were Franciscan friars, men who came to convert the Maya to Christianity. One of the most famous and most complex of these men was Diego de Landa. He was a zealous missionary, utterly convinced that the Maya religion was the work of the devil. In his fervor, he committed an act that is now seen as a tragic and incalculable loss to world history. In the town of Mani, in the year 1562, he held a great ceremony, an autodafa. He gathered all of the sacred Maya books, the codices, that he could find. He saw them as instruments of idolatry and evil, and he burned them. We can only imagine the hundreds, perhaps thousands, of irreplaceable books that were turned to ash that day. Centuries of history, astronomy, medicine, and religious thought, all gone up in smoke. It was a devastating blow to the intellectual heritage of the Maya. And yet, paradoxically, this same Diego de Landa also wrote a detailed account of Maya life, a book called Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán. He documented their language, their calendar, their customs, and their beliefs with meticulous care. He did this to better understand them, and thus better convert them. But in doing so, he unknowingly preserved a wealth of information. Centuries later, his writings would become a crucial key, a Rosetta Stone that helped scholars to finally decipher the Maya glyphs he had tried so hard to stamp out. Despite the diseases and the destruction, the Maya people never simply surrendered. Their resistance was fierce and persistent. For centuries, revolts and rebellions would flare up across the region. In the 18th century, a Maya leader named Jacinto Canek led a major revolt seeking to restore a Maya kingdom. And for more than a century after the first Spanish ships arrived, one Maya kingdom held out, a final bastion of independence. On an island in the middle of Lake Pitanitsa, the kingdom of Tayasol, ruled by the Kan-Ik dynasty, maintained its freedom. It was not until 1697 that this last independent Maya kingdom finally fell to the Spanish. The conquest was a period of immense loss, but it was also the beginning of a long process of adaptation and fusion. The Maya did not abandon their old beliefs entirely. Instead, a process of syncretism began, where their religious worldview quietly blended with the new Catholic practices. They would attend Mass in the church, but they would also make offerings to the spirits of the mountains and the forests. The saints of the Catholic Church were sometimes associated with the old Maya gods. It was a quiet, spiritual resistance, a way of preserving their identity in a changed world. Though their kingdoms fell and their books were burned, the spirit and culture of the Maya people proved to be more resilient than stone or paper. Their story did not end in the 17th century. In many ways, it was just a new beginning. The shadow of the cross brought centuries of change and struggle, but it could not extinguish the deep, quiet light of Maya culture. The story of the Maya is not a tragedy of a lost people, but a testament to their incredible endurance. Their past is not dead, not a collection of ruins and artifacts in a museum. It is a living presence, a foundation upon which new stories are being built every single day. To find this living history, we journey from the ancient ruins to the vibrant towns and villages of modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. Here, in their ancestral homelands, live an estimated 6 to 7 million Maya people. They are not figures of the past. They are doctors, farmers, artists, and activists. And they are the carriers of a culture that has weathered every storm. One of the most powerful signs of this continuity is language. The whispers of the ancient scribes have never truly fallen silent. Today, over 30 distinct Mayan languages are still spoken. Languages like Yucatec, Kitch, and Quechua. Imagine sitting in a modern market in the highlands of Guatemala. You would hear the gentle, rhythmic sounds of a language that has been passed down from parent to child for thousands of years, a direct, living link to the people who built the great temples. In that same market, you would see another unbroken thread to the past. The women are dressed in vibrant, hand-woven blouses called hupiles. Each one is a work of art, covered in intricate geometric patterns and stylized figures of animals and gods. The art of backstrap weaving, a skill we saw practiced in the homes of ancient Tikal, is still a vital part of Maya life. The patterns are not just decorative, they are a language in themselves, with specific designs that identify a weaver's village, her family, and her heritage. The ancient rhythms of time are also still felt. In many communities, modern Maya spiritual guides, known as daykeepers, still use the sacred 260-day dazzling calendar. They consult its cycles for spiritual guidance, for divination, and to determine the right time for ceremonies, just as their ancestors did 1,000 years ago. The great, interlocking gears of time have never stopped turning. This endurance is not the result of a passive acceptance of fate. It is the product of a long and often difficult history of resistance. The caste war of Yucatan, which began in 1847, was one of the largest and most successful indigenous revolts in the history of the Americas. For over 50 years, Maya rebels created their own independent state, a nation called Chan Santa Cruz, with its own military and its own unique religion. And that spirit of strength and advocacy continues into the modern era. In 1992, Rigoberta Menchú, a Quichmaya woman from Guatemala, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work to defend the rights of indigenous peoples against oppression. Her quiet dignity and powerful voice brought the struggles and the resilience of the modern Maya to the world stage. Today, many Maya communities continue to practice the syncretic blend of folk Catholicism and traditional spirituality that began centuries ago. They might pray to the Virgin Mary in a church, and then climb a sacred mountain to make offerings of candles and incense to the ancient spirits of the earth. The sacred creation story, the Popol Vuh, remains a cornerstone of Maya identity. Its tales of hero twins and creator gods still told and cherished. The sound of hands patting corn dough into tortillas is a sound that is echoed through Maya homes for millennia, a sound you can still hear today. The smell of copal incense still rises from family altars and sacred shrines in the mountains. The feeling of intricately embroidered textile, the product of a weaver's deep knowledge and patience, is a tangible link to the past. The Maya are not a people who live in ruins. They are the living stones, a people whose story is one of profound and beautiful continuity. The story of the Maya, as we have seen, is one of deep continuity, a river of time that flows from the distant past into the vibrant present. But the past itself is not a static, unchanging thing. It is a landscape that is still being discovered, its secrets still being revealed. In our final moments together, let us drift peacefully over the idea of modern archaeology and the new technologies that are gently peeling back the layers of the jungle to reveal a world even grander than we ever knew. For decades, the study of the ancient Maya involved arduous expeditions, hacking through the dense jungle with machetes, hoping to stumble upon a vine-covered mound that might conceal a temple. But in the 21st century, a new technology has revolutionized the field. It is called LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Imagine a plane flying low over the vast green canopy of the Guatemalan jungle. From its belly, it sends down millions of laser pulses, a gentle, invisible rain of light. Most of these pulses bounce off the leaves and branches of the trees, but a few find their way through the gaps and hit the forest floor below. By measuring the time it takes for these pulses to return, a computer can create an astonishingly detailed three-dimensional map of the ground, digitally stripping away the jungle as if it were a blanket. The results have been nothing short of breathtaking. These ghostly 3D images have revealed a landscape teeming with ancient structures hidden for 1,000 years. In recent surveys near Tikal, LiDAR has uncovered tens of thousands of previously unknown houses, defensive fortifications, irrigation canals, and raised causeways that connected cities. It suggests that the population of the Maya world was far, far larger than we ever believed, a true sprawling, interconnected kingdom hidden beneath the trees. And new discoveries are still being made on the ground. The quiet, patient sound of an archaeologist's brush dusting away dirt from a new find is the sound of history being written. Every few years, it seems, a new royal tomb is found, a chamber that has been sealed for over a millennium. Inside, archaeologists find exquisite pottery, jade jewelry, and stone inscriptions that give us the names of forgotten kings and queens. The scent of damp earth inside one of these newly opened tombs is the scent of a story that was waiting to be told. The work of deciphering the Maya script is also ongoing. Each year, scholars propose new readings of complex glyphs, providing fresh insights into the political alliances, the courtly intrigues, and the religious beliefs of the ancient Maya. We are learning more about their history now than at any point since their cities fell silent. Other frontiers are being explored as well. Underwater archaeologists dive into the deep, clear waters of the cenotes, finding perfectly preserved wooden artifacts and the remains of ancient offerings. Scientists are now able to extract and study ancient DNA from human remains, helping them to trace the migration patterns of peoples and the relationships between the great royal dynasties. And there is still so much more left to find. Great, colossal cities like El Mirador, a sprawling metropolis that flourished centuries before the time of Tikal, remain almost entirely unexcavated, its massive pyramids still shrouded in jungle. The story of the ancient Maya is not a closed book. The jungle still holds countless secrets, ensuring that this incredible civilization will continue to captivate and surprise us for generations to come. It is a calm, wondrous thought that so much beauty is still waiting patiently to be discovered. The river of Maya history flows on, from the ancient astronomers who mapped the heavens, to the modern-day keepers who still consult the sacred calendar. Their world was never lost, only transformed, its echoes still present in the languages, the traditions, and the resilience of millions of people today. And its ancient secrets are still whispering to us from beneath the jungle canopy. It's a comforting thought that stories and people can be so resilient. I hope you're feeling deeply relaxed now. There's nothing more to learn, only to experience. Our journey through the history of the Maya has come to its gentle close. Should you wish, allow our journey to continue into the very heart of the Maya belief system, a world of myth and magic, perfect for the deepest of dreams. And so, if you are still awake and still listening, let us leave the shores of history behind. Let the names and the dates, the kings and the cities, all dissolve like mist in the morning sun. The river of time has brought us to a new place now, a still and quiet harbor, a place of pure dream. There is nothing more to learn, only to experience. This is a journey into the very heart of the Maya cosmos, the world of their gods and their myths. It is a story told not in stone or in books, but in the soft whispers of creation itself. So find that last, comfortable position. Allow your breathing to be slow and deep. Let the gentle weight of sleep rest upon you as we drift together into the dream of the Maize God. Before the beginning, there was a deep and resonant silence. There was no sun, no moon, no land, no people. There was only the sky, a vast and empty bowl above, and the sea, a dark, placid mirror of water below. All was calm, all was motionless. The world was a thought, waiting to be born. In this stillness, adrift in the primordial waters, were the creator gods. They were known as Tipu and Gukamats, the maker and the feathered serpent. They were not figures of great power and fury, but of quiet thought and gentle purpose. They were draped in brilliant green and blue feathers, and they spoke to each other in soft whispers that rippled across the surface of the silent sea. They thought and they wondered, and in their wondering, the world began to stir. They spoke the word, a single, quiet word that held all of creation within it. Earth, they whispered. And as they spoke, the formless water began to recede. The land emerged, soft and new, rising like a mist from the sea. Mountains pushed their gentle peaks towards the sky, and valleys formed between them. The great work had begun. The gods knew that that this new earth needed guardians, beings who could walk upon it and speak their names. And so, they tried to create humanity. Their first attempt was with soft, wet mud. They lovingly shaped the figures, giving them arms and legs, a head and a face. But the mud was too soft, too weak. The figures could not stand. Their faces were lopsided, and when the rains came, they simply dissolved back into the earth from which they were made. The gods were not discouraged. They tried again. This time, they took wood from the newly formed trees, and they carved figures from the wood. These beings were strong. They could walk and talk, and they multiplied, filling the earth. But they had no heart. They had no mind. Their faces were empty and expressionless, and they walked the earth without purpose, without memory, and without any love for their creators. They did not understand the world around them, and so the gods knew this was not the humanity they had dreamed of. Finally, after much thought, the gods found the perfect substance. They found the sacred crops, the yellow maize and the white maize, and from this they ground a fine, soft dough. With this precious dough, they lovingly formed the bodies of the first true humans. They gave them flesh made from the corn, the very substance that would sustain them. And when these new beings opened their eyes, they could see. They could understand the beauty of the world. They had hearts that could feel and minds that could remember. They looked up at their creators, and they gave thanks. The Maya people were born from maize, and so, to them, corn was not just food. It was the very fabric of their being. With the earth and its people now in place, the gods needed to give the cosmos its structure. They needed to build a home for all of creation, and like any Maya home, the cosmos needed a hearth, a place for the sacred fire of life. And so, the gods journeyed into the night sky, into the great, dark expanse of stars. There, in the part of the sky we call Orion, they placed 3 great, shimmering stones of jade. These are the 3 bright stars we see today in Orion's belt. This was the cosmic hearth, the first fire, the source of all warmth and all light. And from this hearth, a great tree began to grow. Its roots went deep, deep into the 9 levels of the underworld, the shadowy realm of Xibalba. Its mighty trunk rose through the world of the living, and its great leafy branches spread out through the 13 levels of the heavens, holding up the stars themselves. This was the Wakachan, the great world tree, the axis of the entire universe. We see it today as the shimmering, ethereal band of the Milky Way, the cosmic pathway that connects all worlds. The gods then gave the world its 4 directions, its sacred corners. To the east, where the sun is born, they gave the color red, the color of dawn and new beginnings. To the north, they gave the color white, the color of the ancestral bones and the cold northern star. To the west, where the sun goes to rest, they gave the color black, the color of the night and the underworld. And to the south, they gave the color yellow, the color of the ripe corn and the sun at its zenith. And in the very center of it all, where the great world tree grew, was the sacred color green, the color of life itself, the color of jade. This sacred map of the cosmos was the blueprint for the Maya world. Their cities were built as models of this universe. Their great plazas were the primordial sea. Their pyramids were the sacred mountains. And in the center of every home, no matter how humble, was a hearth of 3 stones, a perfect, tiny replica of the great cosmic hearth burning in the stars. From this sacred hearth, and from this ordered, beautiful world, all life and all gods emerged. The cosmos was now ready. It was a home, a sacred space, filled with warmth and light. Now, let us gently meet some of the most important deities who inhabited this newly created world. The world is now filled with life, and with the divine beings who watch over it. The Maya pantheon is not a collection of distant, untouchable gods. They are living, breathing forces, as present as the sun and the rain. Let us drift now on a gentle current of thought and meet some of them. Let us feel their peaceful presence. First, we feel the presence of Itzamna, the great creator god. He is ancient, older than time itself. Imagine a wise, kind old man, his face lined with the deep knowledge of eons. He has a large, noble nose and a gentle, thoughtful expression. He is the inventor of writing, the keeper of science and knowledge. He is the first scribe, the first astronomer. His presence is not one of overwhelming power, but of deep, calming wisdom. He is the quiet thought that exists behind all things, the gentle architect of the universe. Now, feel the warmth on your skin. A gentle, golden light begins to fill the world. This is the presence of Kinich, Ahau, the sun god. He is young and powerful, his face a perfect, shining disk of light. Each day, he begins his slow, graceful journey across the sky, bringing warmth and life to the world below. His light nourishes the sacred maze and allows all things to grow. His journey is steady, predictable, a source of comfort and stability. And when his journey across the sky is done, he does not disappear. He sinks below the western horizon and continues his journey through the 9 levels of the underworld. And in this dark realm, he transforms. He becomes the jaguar god, his skin a beautiful coat of golden rosettes. He is the jaguar sun, a powerful, silent creature of the night, padding softly through the shadows, a protector through the darkness, until he is ready to be reborn in the east at dawn. Now, a change in the air. The warmth of the sun softens, and a gentle breeze begins to stir. The sky grows a shade darker. You hear a very distant, soft rumble of thunder. It is not a frightening sound, but a deep, promising one. This is the arrival of Chak, the vital god of rain and lightning. He is a fantastical being, with a long, curling snout, like that of a tapir, and reptilian scales on his skin. In his hand, he carries a lightning axe, not as a weapon of war, but as a tool to crack open the clouds and release the life-giving rain. His presence is a profound relief. Imagine the scent of the air just before a storm, that fresh, clean smell of ozone and wet earth. Imagine the feeling of the first cool drops of rain on your skin after a long, dry day. This is the gift of Chak. He is the god of nourishment, the one who quenches the thirst of the cracked earth. And from that rain-soaked earth, another god emerges. He is always shown as young, beautiful, and graceful. His skin is the color of fresh corn, and his headdress is made of tender green maize leaves and golden silk. This is Hun-Hunappu, the maize god. He is the most beloved of all the gods, for he represents the very substance of life. He is the cycle of agriculture itself. He is buried in the earth like a seed, suffers in the darkness of the underworld, and is reborn each spring, rising from the earth in triumph. His presence is the sweet, wholesome scent of fresh maize, the gentle rustle of corn leaves in the wind. He is the promise of rebirth and sustenance. As the day ends and the light of the sun god fades, a new light appears in the sky. It is a soft, silver light, cool and gentle. This is the light of the moon goddess. She is a goddess of many forms. Sometimes she is a young and beautiful maiden, the crescent moon, a symbol of new beginnings and fertility. At other times, she is a wise old crone, the full moon, a patroness of weaving and medicine. She holds a rabbit in her lap, the very same rabbit we can sometimes imagine in the patterns on the full moon's face. She is the goddess of the tides, of the cycles of women, and of the healing arts. Her presence is a deep, quiet peace, a soft light to guide you through the gentle darkness. And weaving through all of these realms, from the sky to the earth, is the shimmering presence of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. Imagine a magnificent serpent, its body covered not in scales, but in the long, iridescent green feathers of the sacred Quetzal bird. He is not a creature of the earth, but of the sky and the wind. He represents the union of the heavens and the earth. He is a god of learning, of artistry, and of civilization. His presence is the gentle whisper of the wind, a force that is both powerful and invisible. These gods, and many others, inhabited the Maya world. The four backups held up the four corners of the sky, their arms eternally steady. And even the mountains and the caves were believed to have their own living spirits. The divine was not separate from the world. It was the world. And these gods did not just rule. They played, they struggled, and they took part in the greatest of all Maya stories, the tale of the hero twins and their journey into the deep, quiet underworld. Let us now drift into that great story, the central myth of the Maya people. It is a tale from the sacred book, the Popol Vuh. It is not a story of fear or of battle, but one of cleverness, of rebirth, and of the triumph of life over the quiet darkness. It is the story of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. The story begins not with them, but with their father and their uncle. Their father was the first maize god, Hunahpu. He and his brother were great players of the sacred ball game. The sound of their game, the percussive thwack of the rubber ball, echoed down into the underworld, disturbing the solemn lords of Xibalba, the lords of death. And so the Death Lords summoned the two brothers to the underworld to play a game with them. But Xibalba was a place of trickery and illusion. The brothers were faced with a series of trials, and they were defeated. The lords of death triumphed, and the head of the maize god was hung in a dry, barren tree. But a great miracle occurred. The tree, which had been dead, suddenly burst forth with fruit, round, sweet calabash gourds. The head of the maize god had become a source of life. From this magical tree, the hero twins were conceived. They were born into the world above, and they grew up to be strong, clever, and mischievous. And like their father before them, they were brilliant ball players. And just like their father, the sound of their game eventually echoed down into the underworld, and they too were summoned by the lords of Xibalba. But this time, the story would be different. The twins began their journey down a long, dark, torchlit path that led into the heart of the earth. The air grew cool and carried the earthy smell of a deep cave. They were not afraid. They were clever. They knew that Xibalba was a place of tricks, and they were ready. They came upon the first of the trials, the House of Gloom. It was a house filled with a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow all light. But the twins were prepared. Hunahpu simply took a feather from his headdress and lit it, and it glowed like a torch, filling the dark house with a soft, steady light until morning. Next, they came to the House of Knives, a room filled with sharp obsidian blades that moved on their own, seeking to cut them. But the twins did not fight the knives. They spoke to them. They offered the knives the flesh of animals to cut, And they promised them that in the world above, all the knives of humanity would belong to them. The knives were pleased, and they lay still, their sharp edges glinting beautifully in the torchlight. They faced the house of cold, but they huddled together and were not harmed. They faced the house of jaguars, but they simply fed the great cats, who were so grateful that they curled up and slept peacefully through the night. And they faced the house of bats, and with clever tricks they survived even that. The lords of death were furious that the twins had passed all the trials. In the end, the twins knew they could not defeat the lords with strength alone, so they devised a final, brilliant trick. They allowed themselves to be captured, and they were sacrificed, but their essence was not destroyed. They came back to life, disguised as wandering performers. They came before the lords of Xibalba and performed magical dances. They performed a trick where one brother would sacrifice the other and then bring him back to life, whole and unharmed. The Death Lords were delighted and amazed. One of the chief lords, filled with pride, begged to be the subject of the trick, and so the twins obliged. They sacrificed the Lord of Death, but this time they did not bring him back. The other lords of the underworld were defeated. The darkness had been outwitted by cleverness and life, and now the twins' final and most important task could be completed. They journeyed to the place where their father, the maze god, had been buried, and through their power they resurrected him. The maze god rose from the earth, young and beautiful once more. His rebirth ensured that corn could be planted in the world above, and that humanity could finally be created. Their great quest was complete. They had brought life and hope back from the darkness, and so Hunahpu and Xbalanque ascended from the underworld, up into the sky. And there they became the sun and the moon, forever chasing each other across the heavens, a permanent celestial reminder of their triumph. It is a beautiful, peaceful story, a dream of how light and life will always, in the end, find a way to overcome the quiet dark. This story of creation, of rebirth, and of celestial transformation was not just a myth to be told around a fire. It was the very foundation of the spiritual life of the Maya. It was a story that was lived, a sacred drama enacted in the landscape itself. For the Maya, there was no separation between their world and the world of the gods. The entire landscape was a sacred text, filled with portals that connected the realms. Let us drift now, in our final moments together, into these most sacred of spaces. Let us feel the peace of the portals of the earth. Imagine walking through the deep, green jungle. The air is warm and humid. You come to a small opening at the base of a hill, a dark entryway into the earth. This is the mouth of a cave. As you step inside, the air changes immediately. It becomes cool, damp, and filled with a unique, mineral-rich scent of limestone and deep earth. This is a profoundly sacred place. A cave, for the Maya, was a direct entrance into the underworld, into Xibalba. It was the home of powerful deities, especially the rain god Chak, who was believed to create the clouds and thunder deep within the earth. As you walk deeper, the only sound is the slow, rhythmic drip of water from a stalactite above, each drop echoing in the profound silence, a sound like the slow ticking of a geologic clock. The Maya would come to these deep, quiet places to perform the most important rituals, to speak directly with the gods and the ancestors. They left offerings here, beautiful ceramic vessels and pieces of jade, placed carefully in the dark, a gift for the spirits of the earth. In the quiet cool of a sacred cave, you can feel a sense of peace, a feeling of being held safely in the heart of the world. Now, let us travel from the caves of the south to the cenotes of the north. Imagine standing at the edge of one of these great natural wells. The stone at the edge is smooth and worn by time. You look down into a perfect circle of deep, turquoise blue water. The sun from above pierces the opening, sending shafts of light down into the clear depths, illuminating the strange, beautiful rock formations below. Like the caves, these cenotes were also seen as portals to the underworld. They were the center of life for their communities, not just as a source of water, but as a place of immense spiritual power. Floating in the cool, clear water of a cenote, you can feel a sense of timelessness, as if you are suspended between the world of the sun above and the mysterious, quiet world of water below. And from these natural portals, we now turn our gaze upwards to the great man-made portals. We look upon the temple pyramids. These were not just buildings. They were man-made sacred mountains called wits. They were designed with immense effort to replicate the sacred mountains of the natural world and to bring the rulers, the holy lords, closer to the sky realm of the gods. Imagine standing at the base of a great pyramid at sunset. Its long, sharp shadow stretches across the plaza, a giant finger pointing towards the horizon. To climb the steep staircase of a pyramid was a symbolic journey, an ascent from the earthly realm towards the heavens. Many of these temples were built over older, smaller ones. As centuries passed, the pyramids grew, layer by layer, like the rings of a great tree, each layer containing the sacred history of the generations that had come before. The entire city was a sacred space. Great paved causeways, called sakbib, or white roads, connected the most important temples. At night, their white plaster surfaces would have glowed in the moonlight, creating sacred pathways through the jungle. The very layout of the city was a map of the cosmos, an observatory for tracking the stars. The Maya world was a place where heaven and earth were intertwined, where the spiritual and the natural were one and the same, alive and inseparable. Here, in the quiet heart of a sacred mountain, embraced by the earth, our journey comes to its final, peaceful close. And here, in the deep peace of this sacred world, we can finally rest. The story of the Maya, a tapestry woven from stars, stone, and maize, has been told. Thank you for allowing me to be your guide on this long journey tonight. I hope it has brought you comfort and calm. If you've enjoyed your time with the Sleeping Scribe, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into the past. Your support means the world to me and helps our small community grow. But for now, all that is left to do is let go. Let the images of jungle cities and starry skies drift away. May your sleep be deep, your dreams be peaceful, and your rest be complete. Good night.